The first wave of Selnor ships arrived like a storm tearing through the calm of space, their sleek vessels cutting through the black void with terrifying precision and ease. From a distance they looked like majestic behemoths, but the closer they came to Earth, the more the humans realized they were facing something unlike anything they'd ever imagined. A race of beings so advanced their technology was unfathomable to human minds. The Selnor didn't come in peace, they came with demands and threats. Their leader's voice, broadcasted across the planet like a distant thunderclap declaring humanity had no place in the galaxy, that Earth was theirs to claim, and that any resistance would be crushed under the weight of their power. They offered humanity a choice to bow and serve or be wiped from existence. The world held its breath as the news spread. Every nation paused, every leader stood silent for a moment of dread. But humanity was not so easily cowed. Earth's people united in a way no one had ever seen before. Governments that had once been bitter enemies now found common ground in the face of a shared threat. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, and civilians alike began to work together on a scale no one could have predicted. The Selnor watched from orbit, thinking humanity would crumble under their arrogance. They believed Earth's population was weak, technologically primitive, and easy to control. They could not fathom the power that lay dormant in humanity's capacity for defiance, for invention, and for the will to survive. The first battle was swift and brutal. The Selnor attacked in full force. Their fleet filled the skies above Earth's largest cities in moments, sending a wave of destruction across the world's capitals, their weapons tearing through buildings like paper, and their shock troops invading the ground below. Cities fell one after another, with Earth's defenders overwhelmed in the chaos. Yet as they watched their cities burn, the spark of resistance began to ignite. What the Selnor did not know was that Earth's people were not helpless. They had never faced an enemy like this, but they were used to fighting for survival. And where one battle was lost, new ideas began to emerge. A group of engineers and hackers managed to breach one of the alien ships, and in the darkness of their makeshift command centers, a strange energy began to shift. Humans reverse-engineered alien technology at an astonishing rate, learning how their invaders thought, how they fought, and how they could beat them. Even as the Selnor laughed and celebrated their easy victories, small pockets of resistance began to grow stronger, not with brute force, but with cunning and creativity, as one by one humanity's inventions turned the tide. Weapons once unimaginable appeared on the battlefield, and the Selnor could not believe what they were seeing. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The Selnor had underestimated them, and now humanity had awakened the truth that they were not weak, that they were not helpless, that they could fight back, and they would fight back with everything they had. The first human victory came swiftly. A small but crucial sabotage mission against one of the Selnor supply ships resulted in an explosion that sent shockwaves through their fleet. The humans had done the impossible. They had struck back, and that was just the beginning. As the first shock of victory rippled through the Earth's defenders, they quickly realized that their struggle had just begun. The Selnor might have underestimated them, but now they would feel the sting of their own arrogance. Humanity had done the impossible, but the real challenge lay ahead. The Selnor would not back down easily, and the fate of the planet hung in the balance. In underground bunkers and abandoned factories across the world, humanity's best minds gathered, pulling together the remnants of their old technologies and scavenging whatever alien tech they could from the battlefield. The first breakthroughs came quickly. A crude but functional defense system, powered by reverse-engineered Selnor energy shields, was developed, giving Earth's militaries the first real protection against the alien onslaught. Soon after, a new type of fighter craft emerged, smaller, faster, and armed with weapons that could match the Selnor's own. The world was beginning to change. The initial shock of the invasion had faded into determination. With each passing day, humanity adapted and innovated at an astonishing rate. The resistance movements expanded across every continent, from the Arctic to the deserts. Guerrilla fighters struck swiftly from the shadows and then disappeared into the night, while cities built new defenses and prepared for the coming storm. Despite these advances, the Selnor were relentless. Their fleets loomed over Earth's skies like a dark cloud. They began to tighten their grip on the planet with military precision. Any territory that didn't surrender was quickly subdued. Their weapons were efficient and devastating, their tactics ruthless as entire cities were burned to the ground. The Xelnor believed that humanity would finally break under the weight of their assault. But they were wrong. While the world's largest cities fell, the resistance did not falter. Human ingenuity had taken root, and from the ashes of destruction came new weapons, new strategies that the Xelnor had never anticipated. Earth's forces began to strike back, not with sheer force, but with cunning unpredictability. They had learned how to hack into Xelnor systems, turning their own weapons against them, sabotage missions, crippled supply lines, and destroyed key infrastructure. And on the ground, the Xelnor troops were finding that humanity's spirit could not be crushed so easily. One of the most shocking moments came when a human-made strike team managed to infiltrate a Xelnor command center on a remote moon base. A small team of resistance fighters and engineers breached the Xelnor's heavily fortified compound and planted explosives inside the control room. When the charges went off, it sent a ripple of confusion through the Xelnor's ranks. Their communications scrambled and a portion of their fleet was rendered inoperable. The Xelnor were starting to realize they had made a grave mistake. They had viewed Earth's inhabitants as nothing more than ants to be crushed, but now the humans were turning the tables with an ingenuity and resourcefulness the Xelnor could not predict. As word of the Resistance's successes spread throughout the world, hope began to grow, and with it a new kind of unity. Nations that had once bickered over borders and resources now stood together as a single force. Humanity's will to survive had awakened, and the Xelnor had underestimated the one thing they could never account for: the sheer tenacity of the human spirit. But even as the tides of war began to turn, a new reality set in. The Xelnor had only begun their retaliation. The first victories were just the beginning. The real battle was about to unfold, and humanity's greatest challenge was still ahead. As the weeks passed, humanity's resistance grew more coordinated, more daring, and more lethal. The first victories had been small skirmishes, but now they were targeting critical Xelnor supply lines and military installations. The enemy had underestimated Earth's ability to learn, adapt, and strike when least expected. But even as their tactics shifted, the Xelnor were no fools. They had come to realize that Earth was not the primitive world they had believed it to be. Their response was swift and brutal. It was in the midst of this mounting conflict that humanity discovered a dark secret hidden within the Xelnor's empire, a deep and ancient conspiracy buried beneath layers of deception. The discovery came when a group of elite human operatives infiltrated a highly secured Xelnor database on an abandoned station near the edge of their territory. The data they uncovered painted a chilling picture. The Xelnor had not simply come to Earth by chance. They were part of a much larger galactic scheme, one that reached far beyond their borders, a plan to expand their control across the galaxy at any cost. The Xelnor were not just invaders, they were pawns in a much greater game, a network of alien species bent on conquering and enslaving entire star systems. The Xelnor were merely the vanguard, sent to test the waters, to see how easily a new species could be subjugated, how quickly the galaxy would fall into their grasp. Earth was just the first planet in their sights. This revelation hit humanity hard as the true scope of the threat began to unfold. The stakes of their fight were no longer just about survival. It was about something far bigger. The future of the entire galaxy was at risk, and humanity was caught right in the middle of it all. The Xelnor's plans for Earth were merely the beginning. Their eyes were already turning toward other worlds, and if the humans didn't act quickly, the galaxy itself could fall to this new wave of invaders. The knowledge spread quickly through the resistance forces, and a sense of urgency gripped every leader, scientist, and strategist involved. Earth was no longer just fighting for its own survival. They were fighting for the entire galaxy. Their war had become a war of liberation and resistance against a vast and unseen enemy. The Xelnor's response to this new development was equally swift. They launched a full-scale retaliation against Earth in the form of a devastating offensive against the last remaining human strongholds. Their warships descended from the stars in a rain of destruction bombs, and missiles leveled entire cities and sent the planet into chaos once again. But the tide was beginning to shift. Earth's new alliances began to form with other alien species. Those who had been oppressed or threatened by the Xelnor began to see humanity not as a primitive species to be crushed, but as a potential ally, a beacon of hope in the dark corner of the galaxy. Small but significant pockets of resistance began to emerge from distant worlds, now aligned with Earth. They shared their knowledge and technologies, allowing humanity to further enhance their military capabilities. Earth's ingenuity was now bolstered by the expertise of other species in the galaxy. The balance of power was slowly beginning to tilt in favor of the resistance. The Excelnor were realizing too late that humanity was no longer just a vulnerable species to be eradicated. They had created something far more dangerous than they had ever anticipated, a coalition of the most diverse and resourceful forces in the galaxy, united by one common cause: to stop the invasion and put an end to the Excelnor's conquest forever. But even as the new alliances began to take shape, humanity was still far from safe. The Excelnor were far from beaten. Their retaliatory strike had only begun, and a final, far greater challenge awaited them on the horizon. The war was no longer just a series of skirmishes. It was a full-scale battle for the future of the galaxy, and humanity was at the heart of it. Earth's newfound alliances were beginning to show real promise, but the Excelnor were far from finished. Their fleets were vast and relentless, and their arrogance had shifted to anger. Their leaders were now driven by a single goal: crush the human resistance before it could gain any more momentum. Humanity's strategy was evolving rapidly. They had learned to use the Excelnor's technology against them. Their new weapons now made the battle even more unpredictable. A human-engineered disruptor had been developed that could scramble the Excelnor's advanced targeting systems and render their ships temporarily blind. The effectiveness of this new weapon had already begun to shift the tide of smaller engagements in humanity's favor, but the Excelnor were growing desperate, and retaliation was coming. In the depths of space, the Excelnor gathered their forces for one final assault. They had learned that humanity would not simply fold under their might, and that every victory Earth gained was another nail in their coffin. The Excelnor decided to make a decisive strike, sending their entire fleet to Earth in a terrifying wave of firepower. Their objective was clear: eliminate the resistance and break humanity's will to fight. On Earth, the situation was dire, but the resistance was ready. They had spent the last few months preparing for this moment, fortifying cities and refining their weapons to be even more lethal. The newly forged alliances between Earth and the other oppressed alien species in the galaxy gave them new firepower, new ships, and new strategies to employ. The war had brought them closer together, creating an army that would not be easily broken. The Excelnor's first attack came with overwhelming force. The skies above Earth were filled with the dark shadow of their fleet, and the ground trembled as their warships descended with all the might of a dying empire. The initial waves of firepower were deafening as entire cities were reduced to rubble and chaos spread throughout the planet, but humanity's resistance held firm. The fight raged on for hours and then days, with humans using guerrilla tactics and striking at Excelnor weak points where they least expected it. What the Excelnor didn't count on was the adaptability of humanity and their ability to surprise the enemy when they thought they had already won. One of the most pivotal moments in this new phase of the war came when humanity's fleet, now bolstered by their alien allies, launched a counterattack that no one saw coming. They struck with precision and speed, targeting the heart of the Excelnor fleet, their flagship. The battle that unfolded in space was a spectacle of technology and sheer willpower. Humanity's ships, more agile and coordinated, fought with a ferocity born of desperation. But what truly turned the tide was a risky plan devised by Earth's best minds. Using the disruptor tech and a newly developed hypervelocity cannon, they managed to breach the Excelnor flagship's defenses, causing catastrophic damage to their command ship and crippling their entire fleet. The Excelnor, now reeling from the blow, began to falter. They were not prepared for humanity's level of coordination and ingenuity. The loss of their flagship left them in disarray, and for the first time, they truly understood the full extent of humanity's strength. Their ability to adapt, innovate, and fight back was unstoppable. But even as humanity tasted victory, they knew it was far from over. The Excelnor still had vast resources, and the galaxy was filled with other unknown threats. The question now was how humanity would choose to wield their newfound power. Were they ready to take the next step in this cosmic war and unite the galaxy against the forces that threatened them all? The battle for Earth was only the beginning, and the true fight for the galaxy was about to unfold. The battle above Earth had been a turning point, but the war was far from over. Despite their massive loss, the Xelnor were not the type to concede defeat easily. Their pride had been shattered, but their resolve had only grown stronger. They regrouped, their fleets scattered across the galaxy, licking their wounds and rebuilding their forces. They now understood that humanity was not just a passing nuisance, but a genuine threat, one that would require every ounce of their strength to extinguish. But even as the Xelnor licked their wounds, humanity took its first steps into a new chapter of the war. The victory had sparked something within Earth's population, a realization that they could fight back, not just for survival, but for something greater. For the first time, humans truly believed they could win, that the galaxy itself could be liberated from the oppressive forces that sought to control it. In the aftermath of the flagship's destruction, Earth's military leadership and their alien allies began to work together like never before. The newly forged alliance, born out of necessity, was becoming something more. A coalition of species united not by the desperation of survival, but by a shared hope for freedom and peace. The Resistance, once a scattered group of guerrilla fighters, was now an organized army capable of striking at the heart of the Xelnor Empire. It was during this period of rebuilding that humanity uncovered a shocking truth buried beneath the rubble of their war-torn world. The Xelnor had not come to Earth just to conquer. It became clear that they were only the vanguard of a much greater force. Their invasion had been orchestrated by a coalition of even more powerful and far-reaching species, beings whose motives were more ancient and far darker than humanity had ever imagined. The truth came in the form of a mysterious message intercepted by Earth's best cryptographers. The message was encoded in a language so complex it took months to decrypt, but when they finally uncovered its meaning, it sent shockwaves through the highest echelons of humanity's military and political leaders. The Xelnor, it seemed, had been only the beginning. They were not conquerors, they were enforcers, the first wave in a galactic plan to enslave not just Earth, but every sentient race in the galaxy. The message hinted at a powerful faction known only as the Conclave, an ancient alliance of alien species who viewed the rest of the galaxy as resources to be harvested, subjugated, or exterminated. The Xelnor were merely one cog in this vast machine, and Earth's resistance had become an unexpected thorn in their side. This revelation was a turning point. Humanity was no longer just fighting for Earth's survival, but for the survival of every free species across the stars. The Resistance's mission changed instantly. Now they had to dismantle the Xelnor's control over the galaxy and expose the true force behind the invasion. This meant taking the war to new heights, deeper into enemy territory, into the heart of the Xelnor's empire. But doing so would require a weapon unlike any humanity had ever created. If they were to strike at the very core of the Xelnor's military and their alliance with the Conclave, they would need to leverage everything they had: alien technology, human ingenuity, and the sheer willpower of a species that refused to bend. Amid this new knowledge, the Resistance made an audacious plan. They would infiltrate the Xelnor's central command, find the Conclave's true leaders, and strike a blow to their foundation, bringing down their entire conquest before it could spread any further. But even as humanity prepared for this perilous mission, the Xelnor were not idle. They had begun to uncover traces of the Resistance's movements. The time for subtlety was ending. The war was about to enter its deadliest phase, and the cost of victory would be higher than ever before. The war had entered a new phase, one where the stakes were no longer just the survival of Earth, but the very fate of the galaxy itself. The revelation of the Conclave, an ancient and powerful coalition of alien species with designs on galactic domination, had shifted humanity's focus from defense to an all-out offensive. They were no longer fighting just to survive. They were fighting to prevent the extinction of every free species in the universe. The Resistance, now an interstellar force in its own right, had begun to prepare for their most dangerous mission yet. infiltrating the heart of the Xelnor Empire, a place guarded by technology and power far beyond anything Earth's forces had ever faced. It was a suicide mission, but humanity had learned that when pushed to the edge, they would stop at nothing to win. The plan was audacious. A team of elite operatives, made up of humans and their alien allies, would board a stolen Xelnor warship, disguise themselves as part of the fleet, and slip past the Empire's defenses to reach their central command, the Conclave's true power base. There, they would plant a device capable of disabling the Xelnor's entire communications network, effectively crippling their military coordination and allowing the resistance to strike at the heart of their empire. But there was a complication. The device was not just a simple weapon. It was a one-way trip. Once activated, it would send a massive electromagnetic pulse that would disable not just the Xelnor's technology, but also the ship itself, leaving the team stranded deep within enemy territory. Their chances of survival were slim, and yet the need to complete the mission was undeniable. If they succeeded, the war would be as good as won. If they failed, the Xelnor would regain their upper hand and Earth would face an even darker future. In the days leading up to the mission, the tension within the resistance camp was palpable. There were no illusions about the dangers ahead. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, and even civilians, all united by a singular cause, had come together to put everything on the line for this last, crucial strike. The faces of those who would carry out the mission were a mix of determination and fear, but they knew the price of failure. Earth had come too far to back down now. The team that volunteered for the mission consisted of some of humanity's finest. Commander Alex Harper, a seasoned war veteran and strategist who had led several successful campaigns. Tizor, an alien engineer whose people had suffered under the Xelnor's rule for centuries. Dr. Elena Jean, a brilliant scientist who had helped design the pulse weapon. And finally, a small group of soldiers, both human and alien, who had fought together in the trenches of Earth's resistance. They were humanity's best hope. As the ship launched, leaving Earth's orbit behind, the mood was somber. It wasn't just a mission to them, it was a statement. Humanity was taking the fight directly to the Xelnor, showing them that they could no longer walk across the galaxy without facing consequences. The crew knew they were heading into the unknown, but the fire of defiance burned bright in their hearts. Hours into the journey, as they neared the Xelnor's capital system, they faced their first test. A fleet of Xelnor ships patrolling the area. The stolen warship was their only chance of blending in, but one wrong move could expose them. The team held their breath as they executed the final part of their infiltration plan, hiding in plain sight. If they were discovered, there would be no second chance. As they slipped past the Xelnor's outer defenses, the crew knew that success depended on their ability to remain unseen, but failure wasn't an option. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance, and they were ready to risk everything to change it. The alliance that humanity had forged was about to face its greatest test. The Xelnor's empire was vast and heavily fortified, but now Earth had something more than just hope on its side. Human ingenuity combined with the power of their newfound alien allies. The mission was set, and humanity's most skilled fighters, engineers, and strategists had been chosen to carry out a bold and dangerous assault on the heart of the Xelnor Empire. The target was the heavily guarded, seemingly impenetrable fortress world known as Sargon 9, located at the very center of Xelnor-controlled space. Sargon 9 housed the Conclave's high command, the shadowy, powerful beings who had orchestrated the galactic conquest and who controlled the fate of countless worlds. To strike at the heart of the Empire was to risk everything. But Earth had no choice. The Conclave needed to be exposed, and their grip on the galaxy shattered. The Resistance's plan was intricate, blending both brute force and cunning. They would strike Sargon 9 in two phases. First, a diversionary assault to draw out the bulk of the Xelnor fleet, and then a rapid infiltration mission to breach the High Command's defenses. It was a suicide mission for many, but it was their only chance to break the cycle of oppression that had held the galaxy in its grip for so long. As the fleet assembled in the darkness of space, there was an air of grim determination. Every soldier knew the odds. The Xelnor were formidable enemies, their technology nearly on par with the advanced species of the Conclave. Yet there was something unique about humanity's spirit, something that had begun to permeate every aspect of the war. Earth had always been underestimated, but now it was a symbol of resilience, a spark that had ignited a fire across the galaxy. The Conclave would not know what hit them. The diversionary assault began with ferocity. A coalition fleet of human and alien ships attacked a series of critical Xelnor supply lines and defense stations, wreaking havoc across multiple fronts. It wasn't about winning battles. It was about making noise, drawing attention, and forcing the Xelnor to stretch their defenses thin. As planned, the Xelnor fleet rushed to meet the threat, leaving their primary world of Sargon 9 vulnerable to the true strike. With the majority of the enemy forces pulled away, humanity's finest, led by a team of Special Forces operatives, launched their infiltration mission. Their target was not just the Conclave's leadership, but also the dark, hidden truths they had uncovered in the past months. There were deep secrets on Sargon 9, secrets that, if exposed, could unravel the entire invasion and reveal the true scope of the Conclave's plans for domination. The team slipped through Xelnor defenses like shadows, utilizing both advanced human tech and alien technologies to breach the planet's security. The air was tense, each step bringing them closer to the heart of the enemy's operation. But with every passing minute, they knew they were gambling with more than just their lives. Failure meant the destruction of everything they had worked for, the end of Earth, and possibly the galaxy. Inside the fortress, they encountered resistance unlike any they had faced before. The Xelnor had anticipated this move, and their elite shock troops were already stationed to defend the heart of the Conclave's command. The battle was brutal and swift. The resistance fighters were pushed to their limits, but they pressed on, fighting with everything they had. Earth's soldiers fought with the unyielding force of a species that knew no other way than to keep moving forward, no matter the cost. The final confrontation came when the team reached the central command chamber, a sprawling fortified room that held the true leaders of the Conclave. The beings within were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. They were cold, calculating, and as ancient as the stars themselves. The team's mission had now shifted from infiltration to survival. The final hour had arrived. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the true fight was about to begin. The battle inside the heart of the Conclave's command center was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The team of resistance fighters, their bodies bruised and exhausted from the fierce firefights, stood in the midst of the alien stronghold, their weapons blazing as they fought their way through the last line of defense. But even as they pushed forward, the air around them felt suffocating, charged with a strange, ominous energy. The Conclave's leaders were not ordinary beings. They were ancient, with power and knowledge that reached back through the ages of the galaxy. They were not simply aliens, they were architects of domination, pulling the strings of civilizations far older than Earth. Inside the command room, the team was confronted with a terrifying sight. The Conclave leaders stood in their towering presence, their eyes glowing with an unnatural intelligence. They were beings of pure will, their forms shifting between dimensions, existing not just in physical space, but in the very fabric of reality. To look at them was to stare into the void of deep space itself. But there was no turning back now. Humanity's greatest hope rested on the shoulders of these brave soldiers. The leader of the human team, a seasoned combat veteran named Captain Marisolis, took a step forward, her pulse steady despite the odds. "This ends today," she said, voice unwavering. Her team took their positions, weapons trained on the Conclave's leaders, knowing that they were about to face the most dangerous beings the galaxy had ever known. The battle was unlike anything anyone could have predicted. The Conclave's leaders did not fight with brute force, but with an overwhelming manipulation of space and time. Every move the humans made was countered by an uncanny, almost preternatural force, as if the very laws of physics were bending against them. Captain Solis and her team fought back with everything they had, their advanced weapons cutting through the air, while they struggled to maintain their footing in a battlefield where reality itself seemed to warp and twist. Every blast of energy was a challenge, not just to their physical limits, but to their very perception of existence. But humanity was relentless. The humans fought with a fury that no alien mind could comprehend. They had tasted the price of freedom, and there was nothing, no being, no power, that would force them to kneel again. Their fight wasn't just for Earth anymore. It was for every sentient being across the stars who had ever been oppressed or enslaved. The Conclave's empire had cast its shadow over too many worlds, and humanity had become the spark that would ignite a revolution. Through sheer determination, they began to crack the Conclave's defenses. Captain Solis saw her opportunity, and with a signal to her team, they deployed the final weapon. An explosive device designed to disable the Conclave's grip on space-time itself. The device, a culmination of the best of human and alien technology, was humanity's last hope. It was an all-or-nothing gambit: destroy the Conclave's power or be annihilated. As the countdown began, the team pushed forward, fending off the Conclave's final counterattacks. The tension was unbearable. Seconds felt like hours. The Conclave's leaders, sensing their defeat, raged against the inevitable, but it was too late. The explosion shattered the command center's defenses, creating a shockwave that rippled through the fabric of reality itself. The Conclave's leaders howled in fury as their dominion crumbled. Their power, built on manipulation and fear, fractured into nothingness. The resistance fighters, battered and bruised, stood tall as the remnants of the empire fell around them. They had done it. The universe had underestimated humanity, but no longer. Earth had risen from the ashes of destruction, not just as a survivor, but as a force of reckoning. The Xelner, the Conclave, and all those who sought to control the stars had learned the true meaning of resistance, and as the last remnants of the Conclave's reign disintegrated, humanity understood one thing: this was only the beginning. The galaxy had been forever changed, and the spark of freedom had ignited a flame that would never die.